looking like, even just within the last week, it's gone from, talks to I think basically being done. But yeah, first of all, just your thoughts on that appointment from a Tottenham point of view, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's moved obviously really quickly.
Yeah.
He's ahead in the list now, but I think it's a good thing for Tottenham, if I'm honest. I mean, listening to the fans and listening to the radio and what they've been saying, they've not been happy with the recent managers. When you think of obviously like Nuno, Conte, these kind of guys, they've been very defensive. Mourinho, the same. So to have a guy, and of course they won't know a lot about him at this moment in time, but for a guy to come in who's turned a squad round like Celtic pretty much instantly, has won 5 trophies out of 6 in 2 years, he plays on the front foot, he likes to get forward. I mean, it's a really good appointment. But that being said, they have to give him time. He needs to implement his own style. It's not going to happen overnight, as we seen when he first came into Celtic. It takes a little bit of time, so they're going to have to be patient. But ultimately, I think they'll enjoy the style of football that he plays.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think that'll maybe be a factor in convincing Harry Kane to stay? Do you think he'll maybe want a go under Postecoglou?
I don't see why not, but I think ultimately Harry would make his own decision whether it would have been Nagelsmann, Postecoglou. I don't think it would have mattered. I think that's down to his decisions as he sees future, obviously at Tottenham or away from there. I mean, you hear about Real Madrid and things like that. I do believe he wants to stay in England to obviously break Alan Shearer's record, but ultimately I think that decision is going to come down to him, not what manager is going to be in place.
Yeah, I get that. And, we look at Celtic now, and they've got a big job on their hands when it comes to replacing him. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers is one of the names being floated around. What do you think about the potential of him to go back to Celtic?
Yeah, I think he'll be on the list. I can't imagine him being the top target, if I'm totally honest. Obviously, the way he left Celtic under probably a bit of a cloud isn't ideal, and probably a lot of Celtic fans it'll still hurt a little bit if you want. Although he was very successful, I mean, he had a great footballing team there. He obviously knows the club inside and out, and can really probably hit the ground running. Whether he wants to take time out and then assess his options, but obviously it's another great opportunity to go and manage a top team that's going to be in Champions League. So I'm sure he'll be there on the list, but I think there'll be others that will probably be ahead of him at this moment in time.
Yeah, it's always really interesting to have a look at, the names that just get brought up in conversation when anything like this happens, because one of the other ones is Scott Brown, who's obviously managing at Fleetwood. He had a good cup run, did okay in the league, but do you think, potentially probably not in a managerial capacity, but do you think he would maybe be tempted to come back in an assistant's capacity, or, kind of maybe lower down in the coaching staff?
I can't see it. I mean, obviously, I mean, the club will mean a lot to him. I mean, he's been an incredible servant for them. The amount of trophies that he's won, he was the leader for them for so many years. But he stepped out on his own now. So I think for him to kind of take that step back and be a number 2 or whatever, yes, of course, as I said, the club will mean a lot to him. But I think he's went down the right path. He's moved down to Fleetwood. He's kind of cutting his teeth down there. He's doing a good job. He'll want to build on that year on year. And he's probably happy down there, a little bit away from the limelight. He can just concentrate solely on what he has to do to become the best manager possible. So for him to step back into that kind of situation as number 2, I don't see it. If they were to offer him the managerial job, I mean, it's a massive one to take so early on, but it's probably something, I know him quite well, it's something that probably wouldn't faze him, actually.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see, because, it is obviously, so it's just such a massive appointment, and they really do have to get it right. We saw what happened with Lennon not that long ago, and how quickly things can change if you just don't get the appointment right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing with Rangers and Celtic. They're always breathing down each other's neck, and you have to really get off to a flyer and start well. You don't really get that settling in period, that time to kind of readjust. So it'd be a high pressured situation. Look, I think the likes of Scott Brown could deal with that. It wouldn't surprise me if somewhere down the line he did come back, all going well. But I just don't think this is probably the right moment for him. It probably will be in the discussions, but I'd be very surprised if he was handed it at this moment in time.
Yeah, just maybe slightly too early.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the other things is one of the other rumours that's going round about Ange's departure is it looks like he might want to take some of his backroom staff with him, like so John Kennedy, maybe Gavin Strachan. But I mean, do you think that's likely? We've obviously seen he's a man who likes to travel on his own and take on things by himself. Do you think it's likely that he will poach some of his current staff?
I think there's a chance that he will. Yeah, I mean, he obviously came into Celtic on his own, and he's probably made close bonds with the likes of Gavin Strachan, people like that. I've heard rumours that he's possibly taken one of his analysts and different things. John Kennedy's been there for such a long time, so I think there will be conversations between Ange and those kind of guys because he must feel comfortable around them, comfortable enough that he wants to take them to the next level. That being said, the likes of John Kennedy is he wanting to go out on his own as well? Can he see this as an opportunity to maybe kind of step out on his own? So there's a lot of kind of ifs, buts, and maybes, but I think he does feel comfortable with those guys round him. And going into a job like Tottenham, I think that's what you need. You need your own guys to come in and help because it's such a big club that needs quite a big rebuild. So it's going to be a tough job for him. So he'll need those guys round him.
Yeah, and obviously, he'll be potentially looking at some new signings. There's obviously been a lot of talk about the current Celtic players moving to the Premier League, even before Ange was even in the frame for the Tottenham job. But who do you think, I mean, if anyone, that he'll take or attempt to take with him from the playing staff?
Do you know, I'm not sure. Obviously, I've read things about Kyogo and things like that. But I really think Hatate's had an excellent season. There's been rumours of likes O'Reilly moving and different things, but I think it would be a wrong move if he was to go and sign it because look, there is some fans that aren't sure about the appointment because of where he's come from and what he's done in the past. So if you start bringing down Celtic players, and that's no disrespect to any of them, I think they've done really, really well. But if he was to go and sign for Tottenham and then bring Kyogo and Hatate or whatever, maybe they would be saying, right, well, what's going on here? They're looking at maybe a different level of player. And as I said, it's no disrespect to them. It's just this is a football team that's chasing Champions League and the English Premier League, which is the toughest league in the world for me. So, yes, there possibly could be eyes on them for different clubs down south, but I'd be surprised, as I said, if Ange signs it and then he goes and gets a couple of players to join him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and obviously, this could, drastically change Celtic's transfer plans, getting in a new manager. I mean, how important now do you think it is that they, get these transfers right, I suppose?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they've done an amazing job so far with recruitment, as we've seen with Maeda, Kyogo, all these, even getting Jota and Hatate, Awata. There's been so many that's come in and really done ever so well. You would like to think that the groundwork has already been done, obviously before Ange would leave. Whether that makes a difference, I mean, these players are obviously thinking, right, well, I'm going to come in and play with this manager and he's not there anymore. Maybe that will change the dynamic of it. But I think it's important that the new manager comes in as soon as possible because you need to get ready for pre-season. You need a fast start. And then if the new manager doesn't want those signings that were possibly going to come in, he wants his own. So he's going to need time to kind of organise that. So I think it's really important that there's a fast turnaround when Ange does officially sign, that somebody else comes in quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, do you think, Ange does have this quite unique style of play, I suppose, and he's signed players that fit into that for him. You look at the likes of, the Japanese boys that have come in, but do you think that there's a worry from Celtic now if they look towards a new manager that, if he plays this different style to what Ange plays, that these players aren't really going to work anymore?
Yeah, but I think any probably good manager would come into that situation and say, right, well, what best suits these players that I have? I mean, we're not talking, whoever comes in, they're not going to get a budget of 50 million to go and spend. So, like, you deal with the players in the squad that you have, and then if you can make a little tweak here and there. So, they like to play aggressive on the front foot, close down spaces, things like that. So, you would play to their strengths. I think if I was to be in there and be a manager, you would carry that on and maybe tinker with it a little bit, something that you could see could maybe be better. So I don't see massive change, to be honest. It's about continuing on, obviously, what Ange has done already.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and just kind of on the appointment more generally, there was obviously, a lot of questions to Ange before the cup final about his future when the rumours first came out, and then, he said he wasn't going to address anything until after the cup final. Straight after the cup final, he's asked what's happening with Tottenham, and he says, I don't want to talk about this right now. Do you think that he's handled that in the right way? I mean, you don't make managerial appointments overnight. Do you think that there's probably something that's been going on in the background for a while, but do you think that Ange was right to play it like that and, keep the focus on the cup final and keeping the players focused?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think if that comes out a week before, I mean, you never know what could have happened. It kind of upsets the dressing room. People start thinking of their futures. If the manager's leaving, should I leave? Or he offered me a new contract, I might not sign it now. So it puts all these doubts in your mind. I think it's perfect how he played it. He's the manager of the football club. He brushed it to one side. Let me concentrate on finishing this season strongly, and then I'll speak about it. So yeah, absolutely perfect. That's what you want from, obviously, your manager. He takes the heat off it. But of course, as you say, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, you don't just finish one game and then the next morning it's, oh, by the way, everything's done and I'm away to Tottenham. It's obviously been kind of going on in the background, but played it really well, I think. Just keeping it hush-hush and then wait till I finish, then we can talk about it.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people on Twitter and stuff disappointed that, Ange came out and basically said, I'm not addressing anything when, he's obviously been kind of aware of the situation and probably known that he was going to leave for so long. But,
But that's the thing. See, with it, if say, for instance, he was asked and he came out and bluntly said, I'm not going anywhere, I'm staying. And then he left 3 days later. How does that look? It's worse. Or flip side to that coin, he says, yes, I'm away. As soon as the final's finished, I'm gone. Just as bad. So, like, what do you expect him to say? The clever play is, look, I'm concentrating on this season. I'm going to do my best for this football club, and then we'll speak about it. That's what you do.
Yeah, it's like lose-lose, isn't it? You say that,
Exactly.
and then he's annoyed at you. You'd say the other. Yeah, I know. But anyway, it's supposedly that's all but done. So it'll be interesting to see how Celtic move forward from this point. Yeah, just jumping back to talking about Harry Kane. We obviously spoke about his potential future. There's obviously the links with Man United. There was the links with Bayern. There's also links with Real Madrid now. Do you think that he could be tempted by that? I know you say you think he wants to stay and break the Premier League goal scoring record, but Real Madrid are losing Benzema. They're looking for someone to fill that gap. Any chance?
It's probably the one team that could maybe turn his head from obviously beating the record, if I'm honest. It's probably something that he's looked at for a long period of time, as in Alan Shearer's scoring record. He's not far off it. So for him to leave now, say he goes to Real Madrid and he plays there 3-4 years, he's not going to then come back to England and score the goals that's needed. So it's a real tough one. On one hand, in the Premier League, you go down as a legend if you do break it, and possibly, say, he moves to another team and wins trophies, or you go to Real Madrid, one of the most iconic teams in football. You're obviously going to win trophies there. It's a real tough one. I mean, how do you decide on that? I mean, me personally, I think I would want to go and try Real Madrid. I mean, you just go down history as playing with one of the most iconic teams.
Yeah, I know. Massive decision. I definitely wouldn't want to be in his shoes, I don't think.
Well, I wouldn't mind making it. Breaking the record for most goals or going to Real Madrid, it's had worse decisions to make.
Yeah, that's very true.